Hello and welcome to the Majestic Chat. I am Chris Allen, and a little bit about me. I am an ordained minister with the Fellowship of the Phoenix. I am a published author and a what else do I do? A leader, magic practitioner, healer, and all the above. Laura, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Gonzalez. I'm a witch. I'm a feminist. I'm a priestess. I'm a minister with Circle Sanctuary and the Fellowship of the Goddess. Fraternity of the Goddess, I mean to say. Why did I say fellowship? And I'm a tarot reader. I'm an educator, an artist, communicator, wife, cosmic love, thesis, allegedly indigenous elder. I'm too young to be an elder. And a witch for hire. Pew, pew. And that's who I am, among other things. And I am friend with these two wonderful men. And welcome to the show, Aaron Marsh. How are you?
Hi, I'm Freder Aaron. I'm a graduate of the Seminary of the Fellowship of the Phoenix, a mentor, and a moderator of discussions over at Storybook Witchcraft. In my free time, I'm, I guess, a magician in an armchair. And we are here chatting today with Kerry Wisner. Kerry, would you be able to introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, I'm not sure where to start. Of course, my name is Kerry Wisner. I have been involved in the magical arts in one form or another for most of my life, and started out very young in my teens. I had studied a number of books through Sybil Leek, actually, a number of her texts back in the early 1970s. Of course, Paul Huston's book. And at the time, I was in my early teens, and then my father was a Rosicrucian. I didn't know it, but uh, I ended up. My parents were divorced. Ended up living with him, and he started passing me different books, and um, I eventually ended up in California. And when I was there, I wanted to learn more about witchcraft. I wanted to learn Sybil Leek's techniques. I was really a huge fan of hers. I'd taken her astrology courses, and I began trying to correspond with her. And her son, actually, Julian, had written back to me a couple times. But in 1970, early 1979, she wrote to me because I asked if I could come and train with her. Little did I know that at the time she was dying of cancer. She
Mm.
went public, but she wrote to me and she gave me the name of somebody in the San Francisco area where I was living at the time. I'd grown up in Michigan, but went to California when I turned 18, and was living in an apartment out there, running a record store, actual records, all of that. It was total hippie, and she introduced me via mail to Isaac Bonowitz, and he was living in Berkeley. So I had no clue who he was. I had no idea who this guy was, but I wrote to him, and actually his wife, Celine, his wife at the time, wrote back to me and invited me up. And I got to uh, attend a couple of rituals with them that they were doing. And I really wanted to learn more on the traditional side. It's very similar to what Sibulik appeared to be. And so he put me in touch with a woman right in my area who claimed to be a family traditional witch. She never sought notoriety. And it was kind of interesting because he introduced me to her, and it was quite an interesting meeting because I felt like I was on trial. Her and her family were there, and they really were questioning me on. At first, I was very young. I was like 19, 20 years old, and questioning why, what books had I read, all of this. And I really thought I'd blown this one chance. But Julie was pretty cool, and I won't give her a name because out of respect for the family, they still are not public to my knowledge. Um, but Julie decided to take me on as a student. She explained that I couldn't be in her family unless I married into it, and I wasn't going to do that. I'm not at age 20. But she said she would take me on and start teaching me what she could. And she was extremely well connected with the pagan and Wiccan and craft communities out there, knew the good players from the ones that were not so good. And so I trained with her for well over a year. And I didn't know at that time, too, she was dying of cancer.
Yeah.
But she did eventually find a group that she felt was very good, would be a good fit. And just before she passed, she introduced me to them, and I was initiated into that coven and was with them for 10 years. It was Celtic traditionalists, but they had a lot of traditional witchcraft aspects to it too. And I did fail to mention that Julie, what she claimed was that she was a family tradition out of the Basque region of Europe. I will say in the years since, as I look back at my notes, because I kept detailed notes of every session with her, um, I found things in those notes that I never saw anywhere else until very recently. In particular, um, reading Gemma Gary's books, um, Traditional Witchcraft. I was flipping through it. I'm going, this is Julie's stuff. They'd never met, and I thought this was somewhat of a confirmation that Julie's teachings were at least as legitimate as wherever this Cornish witch, Gemma, was getting her material. And I thought that was very interesting. In any case, I was with the other coven for about 10 years. It was interesting because starting in California, we ended up, I and the priestess ended up moving to North Carolina. And with there, we worked with some Welsh traditionalist witches, or so they claimed. Again, I always say so they claimed because you never really know, there's no, how do you prove this stuff? But that's where, as we were talking just before this recording, we were talking about the different worlds. That's where I was introduced to some of these Celtic worlds and made a huge impression on me. And they had a very unique style of performing their ceremonies, and I've incorporated that into my practice. I stayed with the coven for about 10 years. We had moved up to the New England area and started practicing here. And eventually I left the group. I was high priest at the time, master, whatever you want to call it. And I left and began really diving into ancient Egyptian magic. I wanted to take a break from the other. I wanted to dive into this other aspect because I find it seems like so many roads lead to Egypt. So many of the roots of Western occultism, Western traditional magic lead to Egypt. So instead of you going through New Age sources, what I did was I dived into academic texts, the actual inscriptions on the pyramid, not the pyramids, but on the temples and the papyrus texts. And I did that for quite a few years. I started up an online school called Eket Hutharu, which means Radiant Place of Hathor, and wrote a series of courses and books that I have since rewritten over the years and am now publishing through Troy, Eye of the Sun and Song of Hathor. I also got very, very deeply involved in hermetics, in ritual magic, and Kabbalah. But I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of Golden Dawn. I don't care for it. I don't like I want to say this diplomatically. I don't like the Christian veneer. I just don't like it. I cannot do it, and it really bothers me. But there are other Hermetic orders that are very good that use completely different set of rituals. And I became very involved with one such group. They're fairly well known, but again, I've taken certain oaths, and part of that is not to profit off of what I'm taught through them. But in that group, I was initiated to the level of adept, and still a member, and love it. It's just excellent, excellent. I cannot say enough about that path. But in the years since, I found, especially once we moved into the mountains of New Hampshire, I've been living in New England for 40 years now, and now I'm in I guess my late 60s. But we moved I and my wife bought property in the western side of the state of New Hampshire in a small mountain. You have to four-wheel drive into these woods that the town will not plow. So we're completely off grid. This house where I'm in is not that. Where I'm renting this, but we have property out on this mountain. And once we were out there, and we've been there for many, many years now, almost 20 years, something like that. And something happens out there. Something changes you. You're living close to the land. You're living close to nature and the seasons, and you're literally your life revolves around them in the sky. And all these forces started coming you through very strongly. And all of the things that Julie had taught, all the things that it just seemed to blossom inside of me. And I thought, I'm getting older. I just began taking all of my teachings that I've been given through the years and thought, what is it that I practice? What is this that I work? It works. What is it? And I thought, I am not getting any younger, and I wanted to get it out into the public. So that's when I decided to sit down and write a book. I had, and it started out as just some notes and eventually expanded into 3 books. And that's what the books through Troy are. That is the Willow Path, Horns of the Moon, and the Art. And so I call it traditional witchcraft, but I'm going to be very honest. It's a melding of these 3 great traditions, of the traditions of the rural folklore, the rural folk witch, of what Sybil and Julie were trying to teach or trying to embody. No matter what you thought of Sybil Leek, good or bad, I think she did a lot to at least bring that into people's consciousness. And then Julie was very, very sincere in what she was doing. And then, of course, Hermetics and ancient Egyptian. I find that those 3 together, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, seem to form the bedrock or the 3 main currents within Western practical occult magic. But my first love really is in the hard, fast, practical folkloric magic. I love that because it works. It's about making things happen here and now. The problem, see, I told you I babble.
That's okay. So do we. It's fine. I mean, you're answering all the questions anyway.
Well, the problem with like ceremonial ritual magic or hermetic magic is it's so cerebral. It's it's experiential to a certain extent, but if you need to get a job or you need to have something happen in your life, you need to make that thing happen. That's not the magic that's going to do it for you, at least
Right.
in my experience. And the Egyptian too. The Egyptian is beautiful. It's perfect for evocation of really powerful otherworld beings. And to some extent, there's some spells and items that I've found that are very practical, but those tend to be used or practiced by the common folk, not the temples. But it's that rural magic, that magic of the common people, that folklore, that folk magic, that cunning magic in every civilization that is the bedrock of practical witchcraft, of traditional witchcraft, in my opinion. And that's really where my first love is because it works. It does. It works, and so it's a tool that I use daily, literally daily. And so that was the long answer of where. Beyond
No,
that,
that's fascinating. I love it.
I'm a certified
It's
hypnotist. I'm also an astrologer. I've done all kinds of things. So
yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that my own personal practice, and why I was drawn to your books is because I was taught um, witchcraft and ceremonial magic. And then when I really got into traditional craft and researching the cunning man from, England, there's a lot of, Solomon seals and the Kabbalah and tons of astrology and things like that. And I really like the combination between herm- hermetic magic and witchcraft. One of the questions I've been dying to talk to you about. So there's this whole thing. So how I was originally trained in my traditional witchcraft, and so now granted, it does have a strong hermetic foundation, but a lot of it was ecstatic practices. So like trance,
Mhm.
um, using the fetch, shape-shifting, speaking in tongues, things like that. Going into forest, finding a stick and conjuring the spirits in the winds, and even doing some say there of the like shaking and swaying and things like that, just really getting your hands in the earth.
Right.
And now a lot of people who are saying that they do traditional witchcraft are like, no, it's not ecstatic at all. It's actually more folk magic. That's traditional craft, like taking a chicken's foot and like nailing it to your enemy's door and shit like that. Which I'm fine with. I love all the voodoo stuff. I'm here for it. So there's this whole like schism, fork in the road to where you're either ecstatic and do the trance, or you do the dolls and the mojo bags and the chicken feet and the bones. I do both for different things. I'm wondering what your thoughts about that are.
Sure. I think it goes hand in hand. I think they all are part of the mix. It depends on what your interests are, but I will say that, especially since I've moved out to this forest, out to this mountain, you become aware of the forces very clearly. They make themselves known. And this isn't something you're out there doing, you can do ritually, but I'm finding it's more about merging with the land, becoming, letting yourself go, and letting these forces flow through you. And so I've made high ritual special on this date, the special one and all that. But I found that the best tools, the best items I have are those things that come to me out there in that forest, in that land. A bear bone that I found. I talk about in the art, you probably read about the serpent swan that I made that was made out of the oak, and the bones of a snake that we found that was dead. And I find that those types of things that come from the land, almost unlooked for,
Mm.
are the strongest for me. And then as far as ecstatic, I do a lot of trance work, but it is controlled. In fact, when you read Horns of the Moon, I have several chapters dedicated to using trance and ritual techniques for sending forth the fetch and for you to travel in spirit. But in doing so, then you can work with and encounter these beings in the land. And I think you need a certain amount of control. I know Sibelic used to talk about that in some of her books. In fact, Complete Art of Witchcraft, she talks about in the circle, they would go into trance and would do what she called astral projection, but it's essentially the same thing, traveling in spirit, but it was in a controlled setting. And I think that's important to a certain extent. Now, having said that, I have had very real experiences out there in the forest that were totally unlooked for, with what I believe, what I feel were very real otherworld sentient beings that just happened. And this is very much in keeping when you look at the old lore from post pre-industrial modern Britain with the witches that confessed or whatever. They would talk about how they would be out in nature and a spirit, their familiar, or the devil, or whoever would come to them and appear to them. And in my mind, as practicing occultist, I think what happened is the same thing that happens to me when I'm out there. I've had these experiences where these beings have come to me. And I've been thinking about this a lot. They said, well, did it really come to you as a physical thing, or was it a vision? You've got to remember when you read these old books, these accounts, people's understanding of reality is very different from our limited, materialistic 21st century view. We've boxed ourselves into a corner here where we think this is it. If I don't see it and feel it, if I can't put it on my iPad, it's not real. The simple fact is that for people 200 years ago, 300 years ago, yes, this was real. This cup is real. But also, when that spirit comes through and I can feel and I can see it in my mind and I know it's there because I've had this experience, you go, yeah, that was real. but was it physically as physical as that couple? No, but where is the boundary? Where is reality? And for these people, that was part of reality. And for the witch today, for myself, that is real. When I go and look at my magical journals, because I keep a journal of all my experiences, I'll be talking about the circle or whatever I'm working in and the ritual techniques and the physical items. And then in the very next line, I'll talk about, the expanse opening up and the spirit coming through. Now, somebody reading that 100 years from now is going to go, "Oh, was there really somebody there?" Well, yeah, there was, but your view of reality is what's holding you back from understanding what I am actually experiencing. And I think that's the situation when we go back and look at these confessions. We look at the confessions of Isabel Goody and some of the others, and you read them and you go, well, that sounds very real. Well, wait a minute. All of a sudden, she's a cat or she's in somebody's house going through a window. That can't be real. Well, it can be real because reality is much more multidimensional than we begin to comprehend in our modern enlightened age. Until you get into quantum physics, and then everything goes out the window again. So I'm babbling again.
No,
That's
I am
great.
here for this. That was like I was glued. I was like, oh, God, this is so good. Part of the things that I like about what you're saying is that you're using terminology to say that things that I think everyone on here has had an experience. You can call it astral projection,
Mhm.
a spirit working, whatever. Freda or Aaron, what questions did you have?
I have many, but I did see Laura had a hand raised,
Oh, I
so
didn't
you
see that.
better jump
Yeah.
Go
in.
ahead, Laura.
I was going here, but you cannot see it with the speaking of reality and perception, right? Kerry, it was so funny because you said if it's not on my iPad, it's not real. And I'm like, no, it's actually not real if it is on your iPad, right? Because for some of us, I'm a Gen Xer, right? So I know that this is all make believe. This is all on the ether.
Yeah.
It's not real. So if we think about not, we don't have time and space. It was created, right, for us to understand. And I wonder how many people from the 16th century or whatever has reached here and see us. I'm basically talking to no one because I'm in this room on my own.
Yeah.
Right? I'm with you, but I'm not with you.
Yeah.
So I wonder if if some of these entities or beings or humans time travel, see me talking here, and they'll be like, okay, she's definitely talking to spirits, or something that blew my mind. Again, I'm a Gen Xer. All these money transactions that are done, they used to be done with cards, and now they're done with the phone, right? You just tap your phone, and there's no actual money ever exchanging hands. There are lines of credits coming from one end to the other. And so it is all about perception and how magical it is and how little we think about it and how that perception has evolved with time. I don't know. I just wanted to add that into the whole commentary. So back to Aaron.
Um, you mentioned the Rosicrucian connection through your father, and I was wondering if that had a direct influence on on your work or your interest with Egypt, or if it's or if it was something that you weren't aware of enough to make a direct influence.
I don't know. I still have all his books. He's passed on. He was a few years ago, and I have all his books. I've been to the Rosicrucian Museum out there. It's pretty incredible. It really is.
Mhm.
It really is. But I will say, in reading their material, it's just not my cup of tea. Now, recently, if my brother's going to hate me for this, but he told me that he's really into it, and he's much more of a Christian orientation. I'm just not. I struggle with the Abrahamic imagery in our society, and I just don't use it. I just don't. So having said that, there's elements of the Rosicrucian that I just can't relate to. Um, but I think there's a lot of truth in much of their teaching that is valuable and worthwhile. Of course, we know, well, maybe you don't know, but the Rosicrucian, at least the Amorc, got its starts through the OTO. So it's interesting to see how all this kind of worms its way through in history. But how much did that influence me? I'm sure that had some because my father was involved in it, and he's the one that kept passing me different books. I mean, I was what, 12 years old, and he's passing me books on ESP and ghosts and UFOs. And hey, Kerry, let's go to the bookstore. I want to show you this. So, in his own way, he was helping to cultivate that in me. So, but do I use any of their stuff in my practice? No, I can't say that I do. But I have respect for it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. At the beginning, you were talking about how, you studied the Egyptian magic because, you found that a lot of our Western magic all came from there.
Yeah.
Can you, I mean, I know we only have half an hour, but can you, can you, in a nutshell, kind of elaborate about that, about what have you found? What are some of the,
Oh,
what are those paths? What are you finding that's resonating? Because I would agree with you, because I studied some of the OTO material, the Golden Dawn material, Solomon's magic and seals, and yeah, a lot of them do come from Egypt. But what is the connection there? What is that? What's the path?
I'm not sure I understand the question. What is the path between ancient Egypt and modern occultism today, or how did I get interested in it? If you look at the
Well,
connection, I've been searching for that. The connection as far as how was there an actual ancient Egyptian influence that has survived to this day in modern Western occultism? And I am absolutely convinced that there is. I know that historians and a lot of occultists will say that that is not true. But more and more ancient Egyptologists are finding those links. You look at the work of Jan Osman, who just passed, unfortunately, incredible academic. He talked quite a bit about that possibility. And also, Dr. Alison Roberts. She's written a series of books, and the most recent one is Hathor's Alchemy. And she's a respected Egyptologist. But in her series, she goes and starts diving into alchemical works from the Renaissance period
Mm,
and shows clear patterns and links that could only have come or appear to have only come through some lineage from ancient Egypt at a time when nobody knew how to read ancient Egyptian. So that implies that these teachings somehow carried forward. Now, here's what I think. It's the end of the Egyptian period, late period, Ptolemaic area. The Romans are coming in. The Christianized Romans are coming in and forcibly shutting down the temples, killing the priesthood. Alexandria is the center of the world at that time, the Western world, all this melting pot of information. You've got Hebrew, you've got African, you've got Roman, you've got Greek, all this stuff. And all of the wisdom of ancient Egypt that was left is merging into that area. These people were working underground. We know from the research, at least Elson Robert talks about it, that there were schools, hidden schools or secret schools of esoteric thought that were trying to keep the teachings alive. Well, these would have spread. It would have been written down. It would have been put into Greek and into other languages. And these would have spread. And it was in the perfect spot. You had the Mediterranean, so it would have spread to Rome. It would have spread to these areas. And I am convinced that these had a direct effect on the birth of Hermetics. And so when you look at her thrice greatest Hermes, we know that Daute or Thoth was also referred to as thrice great. And the legendary Book of Thoth, did it ever exist? Well, in fact, recently, I want to say 20 years ago, in a museum in Berlin, of all places, down in one of the archives, they found the Book of Thoth. And when you compare it to the Hermetica, there's parallels. And it's ancient, it's thousands of years old. So I would love. I'm so close to finding the smoking gun, but I think Alison
Hmm.
Roberts does a pretty good job when she talks about Splendor Solis, that alchemical text, and in that she shows the patterns, the drowning of Osiris or whatever is shown depicted in those paintings. What's really interesting too is those same paintings, Splendor. I'm babbling here again, aren't I? But I'm passionate. The paintings in the Splendor Solis also incorporate a lot of folklore and folk magic. I hate to use that term. Rural magic from Europe is also incorporated into it. So it's almost the same thing I've been saying all along, where you have this blending of ancient Egyptian teachings merging into Hermetics, and you see elements of the indigenous peoples' cultures of Europe and elsewhere. Of course, you've got to consider the Slavic countries, Russia, all of this, these cultures all blended and into this melting pot at that time. And I think that was the birth of what we would call traditional witchcraft.
Hmm.
And, I really am convinced that there are real roots that exist today. Now, there's going to be some that are going to watch us going to say, no, that's not true. There's no evidence. I've had heated arguments with real academics who insist that that's not true. Um, but more times than not, academics tend to be wrong because they're so stuck in their mindset. I think it's there. I'd really like to see some more evidence, but it's so close. It's so close now. But that's my professional opinion. Professional from an occultist witch's point of view. Um, as far as me, why did I get involved in it? I've just always been passionate about ancient Egypt as well. Um, and I'm going to sound really fruity and new agey, but I'm going to say it was distinctly because of past life memories that have come through. And it, so there you go.
I think there's something important about that. One of the things that I've been talking about is um, I personally can believe that if you have studied like the archaeologists and you've studied the witch trials and all those things, and you have a good solid background, and if you want to incorporate some of the New Age philosophies, I think that's fine. I'm a Reiki master teacher, so I do have some of that. I think where a lot of people uh, get their panties in a wad is because they want to be purist. And anyone who's actually studied witchcraft, there's no such thing. There is no such thing. I mean,
Exactly.
it all blends in. I mean, one of the things I tell my students that if you want to find something that's meaningful for you, learn the foundation, work with the spirits, and between you and your gods and your ancestors and your spirits, find something that works for you and do that. And what other questions do you have?
I might be misattributing this, but I think G.R.S. Mead argued that the Corpus Hermetica was Egyptian wisdom being communicated through the language of the Greeks and Greek philosophy, and therefore the meaning became ultimately changed just in that translation from one terms to the other, but then also created this beautiful synthesis, right, of the two mystic systems. And similarly, I'm sort of arguing into an empty room that the witch's Sabbath could be a continuation of ecstatic rites like the rites of Eleusis. And now Peter Mark Adams is doing work suggesting that the rites of Hathor was a mystery cult similar to the rites of Eleusis. And these are all very separate, but just interesting ideas and work that is still going on, still being traced back to Egypt. Something that I do find I guess, different between some of the things we're talking about. We were mentioning before we recorded the beautiful system that you have of the three worlds
Oh yeah.
and the world tree in the center, but in this case, the stang in the center. And that is something I don't necessarily see an analog for in ancient Egypt, other than maybe the Nile. But I'm wondering if you want to talk about that idea and not in any entrapment way, but just yeah, bounce some
No,
ideas,
no, no, no,
bounce some
no.
ideas about world travel in ancient Egypt.
Well, first of all, I'm not married to any of these.
Uh-huh.
I approach magical work like I'm trying to say like a scientist would. You learn something, did it work? Okay, it didn't. What did work? It's a technology, it's evolving and developing. So I'm not married. It's not like this isn't dogma to me. It really isn't. It's not like, oh my God, you're crushing my world. It's what's real, what works, what doesn't. Now I use the
Uh-huh.
terms in my books because this is what has come down to us through the ages from these different cultures and how they perceived those realms. Now you look at the ancient Egyptians, they had a number of other worlds that they talk about. Of course, the underworld or the Rastu, and within that there were multiple dimensions that the sun god Ra had to traverse through over a period of time as he underwent certain transformation. And in those, he had to encounter specific beings who aided or threatened that transformation. And there were certain ones that were absolutely critical to that. Of course, Osiris and Ra merge at the midnight hour and become one. Now, have you read The Willow Path yet? You read part of
I
it, or
have. I
yeah.
have.
So I try to tell a little bit about that in there with the midnight sun, um, and that's relating to the cauldron of inspiration that you find in Karadir in the ancient Celtic legends. So I think you can't look at Egypt as just literally there's the Nile and there's this tree. It's not. You've got to look at it more as dimensional. And they firmly taught aspects of course, the Rastu, the underworld, that transformation, but also realms such as the Field of Reeds or this paradise where the gods existed. And I'm convinced that if you look at the Egyptian tradition and systems, it was in a circular pattern, a cyclic pattern. And Dr. Jan Assmann talks about their concepts of time, which I talk about in Horns of the Moon, and also in where is it? Song of Hathor? But anyway, the cycles of time and the way time is perceived by the Egyptians. And essentially, it was seen as being a cyclic spiral. So all of that does fit in when you look at the realms as it was taught to me through that Welsh traditionalist group I was telling you about, of the Anun, the Abred, the Gwenfed, and of course Carwadir, which is the center of it all, and how these cycle through each other. You don't want to get yourself locked into a linear model or absolutist model, because I'm absolutely convinced that we've barely scratched the surface. I mean, we're little tiny bugs on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Anything we've perceived is a glimpse. It's just a glimpse of what's really real, what's really there. And so these models, the Kabbalah, the three worlds of the witch, the Rastu, and all of this is just that. It's something that we in our present evolution can comprehend and work with. But as we grow and evolve, these are going to expand and become more. But I don't see any conflict between those systems at all. I really don't. I think they enhance each other because it's just another way of looking at the elephant that's in the room. It's just they're looking at it from this side and this group's looking from that side, but you put it together and you get a bigger picture. Am I making sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Could you tell us a little bit more about your Egypt books?
Oh, sure, sure. So they really started back when I had run a Uru, which was a online school of traditional witchcraft, jeez, of ancient Egyptian magic. I really got passionate about it, and I was tired of tired of a lot of the New Age stuff that was out. That was just nonsense. You know, the Atlanteans and Thoth was an alien and all that. I hated that. So I had researched academic texts and said, what's real and how can I turn it into a workable system for today? And everything in those books, everything in those courses, I have done myself on multiple occasions. But I wrote these courses, had them out for many years to people online, and didn't put them out to the public. I did put some very slim volumes out that were more of a public version, but the expanded ones, the meat of the courses, I never made public until now. What happened was the Great Recession. It kind of killed any kind of money I had, and I had to stop doing the courses, stop doing the online business because I didn't even have internet at that time. And now, like I said, I'm in my late 60s, and I'm going, I want to get this stuff out there. And it's written, and I keep getting students from 20, 30 years ago writing to me saying, I want to have those courses again. So I approached Troy about them and said, I want to put out these books, but I want to put the full course material, fully updated, plus new information because I'm always reading. I'm rabid about that. So I had amassed even more information and I put them into these two books. Eye of the Sun and Song of Hathor. Eye of the Sun is the first course, but greatly expanded. And Song of Hathor is the second and third courses. That is there with them now, and they're having their editor look at it now. So hopefully that'll be out soon.
Is that
I was
predominantly a religious system or practical magic as well? A bit of both?
Well, where does one start and one end? The Egyptian books, I'm going to say, are a little bit of both.
Okay.
Because the Egyptian magic revolves almost solely around evocation and invocation of otherworld beings. Now, you can worship them if you want, bring them offerings, you bring them offerings anyway, but I'm really, 10 years ago, I said, yes, it was worship. Today, I'm not so sure.
Hmm.
I think it's because of all my work in traditional witchcraft. I'm moving away from the idea that I worship you. Rather, I partner with these beings. I understand that some of these beings are vastly more complex and thus superior, though I don't even like that term. I mean, we're all part of ultimately this universal consciousness, if you want to call it that. So is anything really superior to you? Rather, I partner with these. And so when you look at these books, were the Egyptians worshiping them? Yes, some did, but I'm certain that the priesthood also reached out to these beings to learn from them and to grow, to become like them. And if you look at a lot of the texts from ancient Egypt within the temples and the coffin texts in particular, wicked cool. They talk a lot about the gods reaching out and helping you to become one with them, to become as them. So that's not worship. That's partnership. That's helping your son or daughter grow to become an adult. And so I'm sorry. My wife's calling me. She's, oh, there we go. I told her I had this going on. I'm sorry about that. So that's when I say, where does religion start and stop and magic begin? Hold on a second. It must be an emergency. Hello, I'm doing the interview.
So while we're waiting, Laura, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
I was
No.
saying bye.
Oh.
No, I'm back. I'm back.
That was
Sorry.
quick.
She forgot I had this going on. So I don't know if that answered your question. So if you get those books, if you were going as I want to practice Hermetic religion, you could do that. But they're written in a style that you could do actual evocation and invocation of these otherworld beings. And so that leads to the next thing, is witchcraft a religion? And that's going to depend on, again, your approach, your tradition, and who you're talking to. And how do you want to approach it? 40 years ago, I would have said it's religion. I absolutely would have, you know. And when you look at what Julie or Sybil Leek and some of these other authors from the time said, they call it the old religion. And that certainly can be perceived that way. But keep in mind, what is religion? What is it? You know, is it, if it's dogma, bowing down and giving blind faith in something without any real knowledge, but because you're supposed to, then that isn't witchcraft at any level, at any level. If, on the other hand, it is acknowledging something greater than you and working with that, acknowledging that within yourself, then that's a whole different definition of religion. And so the witch really, it's about experiencing. It's about finding that spark within you and merging it with those otherworld beings. It's about expanding your own awareness and about reaching out and becoming as the gods, if you would, in my opinion. So, so I'm really torn on that subject. Now, today, I don't even like to use the term religion to describe witchcraft. Because I'm really into what are the basic facts, what works and what's working for me right now. How do I make this happen? But I know that a major part of it is working with these other world beings that are, as I said, of a much more complex order of being than I probably will ever be. So I'm babbling again, aren't I?
Oh, please keep on babbling. This is so good.
Sorry.
The etymological word religion means reconnecting, religare, reconnecting. So supposedly religion is a path to reconnect with source, whatever you think that source is. So by your own account of saying that you want to reconnect with nature and with these beings and work with them and have a relationship, not just to treat them like an ATM or to dogmatically, in a zombie way, to worship them, but to have this
Yes.
that is a path to that reconnection.
Yeah.
And indigenous people of, at least I know in Mexico, North America, I'm not very familiar with Central or South American indigenous cultures, but I know in Mexico, the Mexica people, that was the path. It was to reconnect with
Nice.
source, with nature, and to learn from nature, and to live with nature, and to live in harmony with nature, and with all the creatures that are part of it. So, unfortunately, the word religion was, as many others, misused by colonizers and zealots that said this is what religion is.
Yeah.
But the real etymological source of the word is, there's no dogma about it.
Yeah. I think I'm just so jaded by the Abrahamic system, by our I maybe I'm just becoming a cranky old man, but I just, our whole society, our whole culture, I can't relate to it anymore. I just can't. It just seems so materialistic, so good, bad, up, down. God the Father, he's gonna get you. You're evil. I can't relate to any of this. I don't understand the concept of sin. I cannot wrap my hand around it. I never could. I do not understand it.
Yeah.
So that's why so when you say religion, all that comes up and I go,
Yeah.
I don't do that. You know,
I'm a woman, so I'm already on, I'm
right.
on hell, so I don't give a shit. I don't care,
Yeah.
but I hear you, yeah.
No.
So it seems that we've come to the end of our
Uh-huh.
discussion. My God, this went by so fast. I have to tell you, you are speaking all of my languages and hitting all of my buttons. I like the esoteric conversations like this, and this is really cool in the alchemy. I'm really interested, and let me tell you, I'm going to get all of. I got the art, but and I also have Horns of the Moon. But I'm looking forward to these Egyptian books. Have them
Same.
come out right now, and I will get them. Oh my God. So, what final words do you have of us, or would you like to say to us?
Wow. Get out into nature. Get out into nature. Find out who you really are. Listen to that inner voice when you're out there. Do the rituals out in nature. Make space for the spirits and listen to your dreams. Listen to the voices that come through. It's not going to happen readily. Not going to happen instantly. Some people does. It did when I was really young. When I was really young, in my teens. But I think all your centers are open. You're wide open because your hormones are going crazy. But when you get older, it all kind of shuts down. Get out there and just listen to it and connect with the land, connect with nature. And you'll find that these forces come through pretty strong. And practice, practice, practice. Don't be an armchair occultist. I know so many people. I loved armchair occultists because they buy my books, because they're addicted to buying books. So great, buy my books. But practice it. Get out there and do it. Even if it doesn't work or if you make a mistake, do it again. It's like riding a bike or it's like cooking. You got to do it over and over till you get it right. And know that this weird time we're in right now is just fleeting, but these ancient traditions, this current that I call the Gyasa, but this current has been here forever and it will be long after we're gone, but it's up to us to help manifest that and bring it forward. Bring these teachings forward, make them available to other people if they're ready for them. And that's why I've, like I say, I'm pushing 70 now and I'm going, I got to get this stuff out. I got to get it out. I got to get this stuff out. And part of that, I'm babbling here again, but part of that is purely for my own personal sake, because when I come back, I want to find something good left that I can continue with.
I love that so much.
I'm dead serious. Oh my God, there's so much crap out there in the bookstores right now. How does anybody find anything? I said, man, if I come back in 50 years, 100 years, what's going to be left? So I said, I'm going to put some stuff out there, and hopefully one day I'll be some teenager going, oh, what is this? That's what I'm hoping is going to happen.
That's awesome.
But I guess just practice, believe in yourself, connect with those spirits, listen to them, and stay away from dogmatic religion, please. But that's my personal opinion. If it works for you, I'm glad for you. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Laura, any final word for us really quickly?
I mean, second that. Find the connection, go to nature. It's between you and the divine. Don't listen to us. Don't listen to me. Go listen to nature.
Karen?
Just thank you, Kerry, for being here. Thank you, Chris, for allowing me to be in the same virtual space as the rest of you. And for everyone else, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but Kerry made some great, what the kids call hot takes on shadow work in witchcraft, and you can go to Facebook and read it.
Awesome. I will. I want to say thank you. I love your books. I love this conversation. I would love to keep the conversation going on Facebook and things like that. And I want to say thank you to our audience and everyone else. And we will see you soon. So that is a wrap.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.